I often see people talking in YouTube and podcasts and articles about how to overcome anxiety and how to fight anxiety and how we will succeed against anxiety. And I think there's just a better way to heal it from anxiety, and that is by welcoming and befriending anxiety, not fighting against it. These two approaches have very different results because they bring with them very different mindsets. I've had anxiety. I know what it feels like. I know what it is like to not be able to sleep, sleepless nights, anxiety attacks, panic attacks, fear of having panic attacks, fear of fear, and all this anxiety, not knowing if you're going to be able to overcome it, not knowing how long you can hold on. And these moments were the hardest and most insightful moments of my life. What I'm going to talk about in this video is just my personal experience and perspective. I'm not a health practitioner and I'm not a psychologist, so take what I say if it makes sense for you, apply it, don't force it. Forcing things usually never works out. So just take, what I'm saying as my personal experience. For me, a pivotal point in my healing process was learning how to reframe my relationship with anxiety. Moving from anxiety is something that I have to fight against to anxiety is something that I want to welcome. When you think about it from an objective perspective, anxiety is the body trying to tell you what is wrong. It's trying to tell you that something is bothering it. And usually it is some sort of fear or a combination of fear with a different emotion. And just as with a child, the child is not going to open up and tell you how he feels unless the child feels welcomed and safe. In general, fighting comes with something that you are not happy about, something that you resist. You fight what you resist. These could be a good thing at an external event like a protest, but when we talk about internal events and emotions, it only creates a bigger problem because the mind usually attracts that which it resists. The key for me was to really open my heart and start welcoming loving kindness and compassion towards my emotions and how I felt. And this really was the way towards healing my anxiety. This shift in mindset changed everything. All of a sudden, I wasn't consuming crazy amounts of energy, trying to fight against myself, fight against my thoughts, and fight against my emotions. I was instead lowering my guard and learning how to speak the language of my body, learning how to communicate with it. And this happened through meditation. Now, I have a handful of meditation videos and you can see the link on the top. I'm not going to talk about it here, but essentially meditation is teaching you how to speak the language of the body, how to understand it, how to listen to these emotions that we usually just ignore and suppress. Now, I am an extremely sensitive person, and the process that followed after I started venturing down that path was years, literally years of crying, of tears every day. And it was through the tears that I was releasing all of these stuck pain, stuck fear that was very deep, that was very complex, and it was just bubbling up. And at first, a lot of the tears were out of frustration because I just didn't know how to get out. I didn't know how to do this. But with time, the tears, as I learned how to feel more and more these emotions, the tears started becoming tears of release, as I was saying, releasing the pain and the fear. And needless to say, this was a very difficult and very challenging process, and it took a lot of time. But the first step was just to change my relationship with anxiety, to welcome it. And the rest, it kind of just followed. Now, there's a poem by Rumi, which is called The Guest House, and it captures really what I want to say in a very clear way. You can pause here and read the entire poem if you want, but really I want to highlight that first line on the third verse. It says, welcome and entertain them all. It's talking about no matter what emotion comes in, and no matter if it's good or difficult or whatever it is, you welcome, you open the door laughing and let them in, which is the opposite of resisting something and fighting against something. Opening your heart to willingly feel the fear and willingly feel the pain is a daunting task. It is not for the faint of heart, and I strongly advise you to do this with the help of a professional. Doing this alone can be quite challenging. If you have the help of the loved ones in your life, people that support you unconditionally, talk to them, and this will make it a lot easier. I was lucky enough to find people along the way that helped me, that were able to listen, that I was able to feel connected to, who went through similar things, and this helped a lot. And towards the end, I was lucky enough to find a woman that loved me unconditionally and just made everything so much easier. But it wasn't always the case. I wasn't lucky all the time, and at the very beginning, when I was at my weakest, I'm at most vulnerable, I reached out to the wrong kind of people, and I actually paid $10,000 to get help from a life coach who later on I realized had more problems than I had. And it really made the journey a lot more complicated. It messed things up quite a bit. It was actually during this period with the coach that I developed OCD and eventually PTSD, and these things made things a lot more complicated, and there was a way to avoid them. So just be careful of who is out there. When we have anxiety and we're craving help, we are willing to jump into any boat to find a solution, and sometimes these can be the wrong decisions. So find people you can trust and love and who are willing to listen. It'll make a big difference. Really, that's all I wanted to share with you. Really, it's all about changing that perspective, welcoming anxiety and not fighting against anxiety. And hopefully you'll find some useful stuff in what I've said. And remember that you're definitely not alone. There's so many people that struggle with the same issues, and I've definitely been there, and I hope this helps in any way. Thank you so much.